live from my apartment. It's Saturday night. So Saturday Night was directed by Jason Reitman and stars a whole bunch of people, including Gabriel LaBelle, Cooper Hoffman, Corey Michael Smith, Lamorne Morris, Dylan O'Brien. A whole bunch of people just appear in this movie randomly. And this is a movie about the 90 minutes before NBC Saturday Night, which would later become Saturday Night Live, took place in, and it's basically about all the chaos that kind of took place within those 90 minutes trying to figure out the show and trying to get everyone's acts together. So this is a movie I was kind of looking forward to because Jason Reitman is a mostly reliable director in my opinion. I do think that even though Saturday Night Live may not be one of my favorite shows, I still kind of respect it in some way, how it kind of like kickstart all these careers and such of all these famous people over the years. And I've kind of been curious to see like what the production of the show was like. And especially kind of interesting that the show is coming out while as the show's 50th season is just getting started and such. So I was kind of curious to see what the show was like, what this movie was going to be like, and see how this show kind of came together despite all the everyone saying this show can't work in any way. And honestly, this movie is a total blast. I actually really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was incredibly intense. I thought it was incredibly funny. And it has one of the best acting ensembles I've seen in a long, long time. So let's start off with the actors. The actors are honestly the best part about this movie, and they make up the majority of the movie. This may entirely be a video about all the actors in the movie because everyone in this movie is fantastic. First off, I thought Gabriel LaBelle was pretty good. He was the main focal point in The Fabelmans a couple years back, and I thought his performance here was really good. You kind of believed him as Lorne Michaels. You definitely kind of like see like a lot of the snarkiness, kind of like some of his like, you know, intensity throughout this entire movie. I do think he's really good. Corey Michael Smith as Chevy Chase. I was kind of worried about this because Chevy Chase is known to be kind of a dick in real life, and he captures his character perfectly. I thought he was really good in this movie. Dylan O'Brien also surprised me as Dan Aykroyd. I thought he was really good. I thought he was really funny, and I kind of forgot that was even Dylan O'Brien. It's like, oh, that's the guy from The Maze Runner, and he's actually good in the movie. Okay. Also, Lamorne Morris as Garrett Morris. I thought he was really good. He was pretty funny as well. Matt Wood as John Belushi. I thought he was incredible. I thought he captured the physical comedy really well. I thought he was fantastic in this movie, even in some of the scenes that aren't necessarily as funny. I do think it's very well done. I thought he was very well done. Nicholas Braun as both Andy Kaufman and Jim Henson, surprisingly. That's kind of weird, like kind of having a dual role like that, but I feel like someone like Andy Kaufman would kind of do something like that, and I think that's very well done. Also, Cooper Hoffman, Tommy Dewey are both fantastic in this movie, as Michael O'Donoghue, Dick Ebersol. I thought they were both really well done. Willem Dafoe, I thought he was pretty good. He was also pretty sinister in this movie. I was surprised. Like, this is one of the more sinister roles, and it's about Saturday Night Live. Like, his performance is really good. J.K. Simmons as Milton Berle, I thought he was pretty good. Even though none of the actors besides, let's say, Gabriel LaBelle get much to do, they rise to the occasion. And I think everyone in this movie does a good, most of the people in this movie do a good job of like what their characters are and like who they are, and it's like that is pretty well done. And also, even though I feel like the movie is very funny, I also think it's pretty intense. Like there are some moments, like particularly in the first half, where it was like laughing a lot because of like some of the things that were just being said. It's like things that were very sharp, very quick, and very funny. It's like, okay, this is kind of what Saturday Night Live should be. It should be funny, it should be quick, it should be, you know, quirky and such. It's like, this is how it should work. But it also shows the intense atmosphere very well. It just kind of balances that out perfectly. I feel like a movie would normally kind of fail at trying to capture both, but I feel like Saturday Night actually does a really good job of trying to capture both. Meanwhile, I do think it is absolutely gorgeous. Like, cinematography is just absolutely stunning at times. It looks like it's actually from the 70s era, and I guess it was shot on film. And even when it's, you know, goes through digital and such, it still looks like it's shot on film, and it's actually very impressive. And also, the music by Jon Batiste is also very well done. He's also in the movie as Billy Preston, who was one of the first musical guests on Saturday Night Live. I thought his music was very intense. I thought his music was still fun, and it still captured the atmosphere of like what this whole movie was like. Even though it was pretty intense, it was still pretty fun, and I thought that was very well done. And also, I do think that there are some references to the history of Saturday Night Live that are very effective, whether that's, you know, people who were on the show. Like, there's some stuff about John Belushi, which is kind of sad in retrospect. And also some in-jokes about Milton Berle a bit, about how maybe he can come on to host. And if you know the history of SNL and Milton Berle, you would know that was not a good time. And I do think those are kept to a minimum, and I think that's very well done as well. Is there anything about this movie that I don't really like? Well, most of the problems I have with this movie are kind of just nitpicks. Like, first off, I felt like most of the female cast members don't really get to do much. You kind of get to know Gilda Radner a bit, but I kind of had a hard time trying to figure out who was playing Lorraine Newman and who was playing Jane Curtin at times. I was very disappointed at that. Rachel Sennett plays Rosie Schuster in this movie. I thought she was fine, but she didn't stand out as much as some of the other actors in this movie. And I do think that there are some very slow moments in this movie, admittedly. Like, particularly in, like, the time between, let's say, 11 and 11:30 on this night, I think that's when it's pretty slow. And I think that's when it kind of should have picked it up a little bit. Like, that's when the show's about to air. Like, you should really get this going and such. Well, there are times where it's like they kind of leave the studio, and I felt like it was kind of, like, slowing down a bit. And I felt like that was kind of a mistake. Meanwhile, there's so much going on in this movie, and I felt like there were some storylines that were just kind of undeveloped in some way, or maybe they could have been a little bit clearer about some of the things they were doing. Like, there's this one storyline involving Billy Crystal a bit, and they don't really do much with it, unfortunately, and I feel like they should have done a little bit more with that. That's just one of the storylines. Also, I should add that there are so many surprises with the actors and such, like the actor who's playing George Carlin. I'm like, oh, I didn't recognize that was you. And also, there's an actor who appears about an hour into this movie. It's like, oh, you're in this movie too? Awesome, that's really cool. I completely forgot about that. But this is a movie that I feel like, whether you love SNL, whether you hate SNL, I think this is a very fascinating watch. Seeing like how this show kind of came together in this very weird way. Everyone was against it, but Lorne Michaels was saying, no, this show could actually be something. I just got to figure it out what it is first. And basically kind of figured it out through the chaos, and basically that's what it is. So I would say Saturday Night, one of the best acting ensembles in a long time. Every actor gets a chance to shine no matter how long their part is. It's very funny. It's very intense. The music is great. The cinematography is great. The homages to SNL history is very there. It's very well done. I think it is very interesting. And even though there are some nitpicks I have with some of the characters who aren't fully developed or storylines that aren't fully developed and also some slow moments here and there, I think this is a movie that's worth watching. Especially if you're a fan of Saturday Night Live. I'll give Saturday Night 3.5 out of 4 stars. See it. So, who's your favorite SNL cast member? Or favorite SNL sketch? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.